Hi, everyone. It's Becky Wade, and I'm coming to you from my living room in Dallas, Texas. Welcome to this edition of the Avid Readers of Christian Fiction Book Club. I am so honored to be joining you today and honored that my book, Falling for You, was chosen for this month's book selection. Thank you. I'd especially like to thank a few ladies before we begin. Martha Artyamenko, I hope I pronounced that right, Martha. She's the admin of this group, and she made it possible for me to bring this live video to you. So thank you, Martha. And I'd also like to thank Angela Ruth Strong, who is a wonderful author and a friend, and she's the one that organizes the Avid Readers Book Club for you. So thank you for organizing this so that I could be a part of it. Angela, thank you for your efforts. Today was a big day. Did you guys all watch the royal wedding? I got so sucked into it this morning. My youngest daughter, and I, we sat on the sofa in our pajamas and we watched it and watched it. We didn't get up to watch it live. Some of you may have been so stalwart that you got up to watch it live, so let me know if you did. But I had recorded it, and so I slept in, and then we watched it for hours this morning, and we were just blown away by the beauty of it, that amazing, amazing dress and veil. And just, I love the Christian aspects of the service. I thought it was phenomenal. So I hope you guys enjoyed it if you were able to watch it. This seems like a good day on this royal wedding Saturday to talk about romance, because love is in the air. If I had a fascinator, I would wear it. But you're welcome to wear your fascinators to this Facebook chat. I would love for you to post pictures of yourself if you have a fascinator or a hat of any kind. I really am not a hat girl, and I don't even own a fascinator, so I'm fresh out of those. But if I had one, I would have worn one today. So congratulations, Harry and Meghan. This romance author was moved and really enjoyed celebrating your big day with you through the television screens. Let's see. Let me just give you a few pointers about how this live video will work. Feel free to type comments or questions as I'm speaking. I will be able to view your comments here on my screen, and I will put some of them up for everyone to see. I won't be able to probably to reply individually to every comment or question, but after this broadcast, I will. So if I don't get to your question during this live video portion, when this wraps, I will answer your question later in the day. Also, I will be awarding prizes because I love prizes. And so I've decided that I will be giving away 4 of my novels, print copies that I will sign and send to you this week. The way that I will choose winners is through the people that interact with me by typing in comments. So at the end of this broadcast, directly when this ends, I will randomly select 5 winners. 4 of those winners will win books. So I brought some of my books here, but please know that I am happy to send you one of these that I've chosen here, or I'm happy to send you any of them. So at this point, I have 7 full-length novels and 2 novellas, and so you can take your pick of any of those if you're a winner. And so I will alert you after this video is over by tagging you if you are a winner. So go ahead and comment and ask questions, and that will be your entry to win one of these 4 books. I will also be giving a Starbucks gift card away. So the weather's getting warmer, but hey, they have iced coffee and frappuccino, so this kind of comes in handy at any point. This is going to be a $20 Starbucks gift card that I will also be giving away because coffee and books pair very nicely together, in my opinion. Let me see if there's anything else I need to mention before I get started. I think I might have hit it all. Okay, great. So I'm going to ask you a question. First, I'm going to say welcome. Did that show up on your screen? Let's see. I don't know if it did. Okay, let me try this one. What are you reading this weekend? Here. Okay, good. What are you reading this weekend? Let's give some love to some other Christian fiction authors, hardworking friends of mine, and let me know what you're reading and enjoying on this royal wedding weekend. I'd also like to know, have another question for you here. So answer that one in the comments. And then I'd also like to know, what questions do you have about writing or publishing? What questions do you have about the life of an author, a day in the life, something about the publication process, how to become an editor, just whatever kinds of questions you have about writing or publishing? I would love to know those. So please type those in as a comment. And then finally, I would like to know about Falling for You specifically. Do you have any questions about Falling for You, which is the book that has kind of inspired this particular Facebook chat, or about my Bradford Sisters romance series? Falling for You is a standalone novel. You can read it completely independent of the prequel novella and the first book in the series. This, Falling for You, is the second book in the series, the second full-length novel. So that's where it falls in the series. It's actually squarely in the middle because I will be releasing a Christmas novella this fall that fits into the Bradford Sisters series, and then I will be releasing one more novel next spring. So far there's been a prequel novella, a novel called True to You, and now there's Falling for You right in the middle. And then there will be a Christmas novella called Because of You, and then there will be a final novel, which I have not yet revealed the title of that. In fact, my editor and I have just been discussing the title and finalizing the title of that one this very week. So that one's still a surprise, the title. Okay, so if you have any questions about Falling for You specifically, please let me know. Okay, I'm going to see if I can go through and highlight some of your questions for me that you've typed in. So unfortunately, just because of some of the new restrictions about privacy that Facebook has initiated, it's not showing your name or your picture attached to your comment within a group. It will if you have a video like this on a page, but right now it's keeping your identity very secret. So this is a wonderful question. Do you know where your story will go before you start, or does it develop as you go? I am both. This is an excellent question. I'm both. I have a general idea of where the story is going to go. So in my case, I almost describe it as if I'm standing on a mountaintop and I'm looking down at this very wide, deep view. And so the story is like this village nestled way below me. So I have this very drawn out, far away view of the story, but I can only make out at the beginning a few of the big things. Like if you were to look at a town from far away, you'd see a few big buildings, but you wouldn't really understand the detail of the smaller structures. And that's exactly how my novels come to me. I typically have an idea of the two characters, and I know the premise, and then from then on, I figure it out as I go. I do like to do quite a bit of figuring out as I write. I enjoy those aha moments that come to me along the way, although sometimes it is pretty nerve-wracking too, because there are times when I'm full of uncertainty and doubt, and I don't know if the story's working. I'm not sure if I'm going in the right direction, and I'm just trying to feel my way through instinct as I go. Luckily, there's this wonderful thing called rewriting, and I rely on that very, very heavily. So I write a pretty rough draft, and then I rewrite extraordinarily heavily. I've been rewriting Britt and Xander's story for the past 3 months, just to give you an idea. And when my editors read it and give me their feedback, I'll rewrite it for at least another month, and then spend 2 more weeks after that doing edits. So I continue to fine tune as I go. Okay, one of you mentioned, tell me about writing Willow's surrender. So she's referencing a scene in the novel, which this is not a spoiler at all, because all of my characters, in order to reach the resolution of their story, are going to have to go through moments of surrender and realization and times on their knees where they just acknowledge that they're not big enough to deal with their lives and the situations that they've been trying to control in their own power. And so that scene was one that I really kind of added to a lot during rewrites. It wasn't there initially. So when I was just talking about rewriting, that was one that came through rewriting. And it was just like eventually the Lord just showed me what needed to happen with her storyline. And I find that the scenes in the book when the Lord shows up to be some of the most powerful scenes in my novels. And so it's an honor, really, and a privilege to get to write those scenes. And I pray constantly before every writing session that the Lord would become greater and that I would become less. Do you guys know that verse from the Bible? And so that is always my prayer. And I always pray that I would be able to honestly and truthfully communicate the Lord's vision for a story and say what he would have me say. And one of the neat things about being a Christian writer is that readers will be so sweet to email me and they'll say, that story spoke to me in this way. The Lord said this to me through it. And a lot of the times it's not something that I even realize that the Lord might say to someone. So it wasn't necessarily something that he was saying to me when I was writing that scene or that subplot or whatever it was, but he has the amazing ability to speak through a story in different ways to different people, depending on what they're going through in their lives. And that's really humbling and phenomenal. Here's another question. How do you juggle it all? Badly? I find juggling it all very tricky. I'm a mom of 3. My kids are 17, 14, and 9. And so just today, like I told you, we were watching the royal wedding. We were sacked out on the sofa, and I let all kinds of things that I needed to get accomplished this morning go. And then that meant that my daughter and I were racing around trying to find her dance shoes for her recital, because any mom here knows that right when you need to find the dance shoes for the recital, you can't find the dance shoes for the recital. They've vanished. They've gone to the Never Never Land where dance recital shoes go. And so we were in this huge panic and then trying to get her makeup on and rush her over there. And I watched her perform, and then I jumped in my car and drove home for this. So I find juggling it all challenging. My goal is that I try to write when my kids are in school. And like the other working moms in our midst here during this broadcast, that's what I do. I try to work and write when they're in school, and then I try to take their vacations off, summer vacations off, and focus on them in the afternoons and the evenings. That doesn't always happen. I'm not perfect at that, and there's always a lot of things that get left undone. But that's my goal. During deadline season, which is where I am now, sometimes it just doesn't happen that well. Okay. A few of you are saying what you're currently reading. What Hope Remembers by Johnny Alexander. Awesome. The Saturday Night Supper Club, Carla Laureano. Great. Winning Miss Winthrop, Carolyn Miller. From the Start by Melissa Tagg. Good on you, Melissa. Pepper Basham's upcoming novella. Oh, novella. Yeah, cool. I didn't know she had a novella upcoming. I'm glad to know that. One of you is reading Falling for You. Oh, and you're loving it. Yay! I'm so happy to hear that. Thank you. So everybody be careful. No spoilers, please. I did want to make sure that we don't have spoilers because I wanted people who have not read the book to be able to come and participate. So thank you for that reminder. Crossed Off by C.C. Warrens. Cool. Okay, somebody asked me, how are you doing with your June 1 deadline? So this is someone that knows that my deadline for Britt and Xander's story is June 1st. And they're 100% correct. It is. And I'm on schedule. I am a very methodical writer. I give myself weekly goals all year, starting in September, and just, slowly and steadily hit those weekly goals. And it's not flashy. It's not one of these things where I write in some big burst of inspiration and write for 12 hours in a row and write a quarter of the novel. That's not me. And so it's just a very slow and steady process for me. So I'm on track to hit that June 1 deadline. I've just got about a quarter of the novel left to rewrite, the final quarter. And so I'm making my way. All right, let's see. A lot of you were saying that you watched the wedding. Awesome. Oh, yes. One of you did, and you loved how Prince Harry was gazing at Meghan. I did too, and I loved how she was smiling at him. I was really proud of our American girl. She was so just classy and composed, and dare I say it, royal. I was really proud. Several of you are loving the royal wedding stuff. Yeah, I'm totally loving it too. Okay. Now, I am going to talk a little bit about inspirations. I thought that I would, let's see, inspirations. So I thought I would talk about inspirations in regard to 3 aspects of writing. One of them, the first that I will cover, is cover art. And these actually tie back to the questions that I posed to you in the Avid Christian Fiction Readers group this week. I asked you about story types, or actually romance types of romances that you enjoy reading about. I asked you about cover art that you enjoy. I asked you about story questions. And so I'm going to hit on those things and kind of give you the inside scoop that I haven't revealed to anybody about some of the inside cover details about Falling For You, because the cover has been very, very popular with people. And then we'll talk about story questions, and then I'll finally give you the scoop on character inspiration for Corbin and Willow. And then, of course, we'll close our time together. And along the way, continue to type in questions if you have them. I will continue to post and answer your questions if I see more come through. So here are 3 of the covers that you guys, when I asked you to name some covers that you've enjoyed or really loved lately, here is one of the ones that you showed. Okay, so this is Hurricane Season by Lauren K. Denton. Hurricane Season. And this is a beautiful cover. I think it's successful for a few reasons. One, that table and that the beautiful lights in the trees are just so romantic, and it makes you want to be a part of that dinner party. And so this kind of a cover, it's almost like an invitation that says, hey, join us. If you read this book, you can have a seat at this table. Join us for this wonderful outdoor event. And so I think that's one of the things that really appeals about it. I also like this title with this cover, because this is a very placid setting, but the title says Hurricane Season. And the idea of being outdoors in a hurricane is a little unsettling. So you know that, okay, this table is beautiful and this lighting is very serene, but a hurricane is coming. So that's appealing. This is another one that several of you mentioned, A Refuge Assured by Jocelyn Green. And this cover is stunning. This is an example of a type of cover that I think is very appealing, and that is the gorgeous historical dress cover, where they show the heroine in a stunning dress. And I love this, and I think a lot of us do. And this is actually something that I'm going to talk about, because this inspired Falling For You's cover. This cover idea, this sort of cover, inspired Falling For You's cover. That's a gorgeous cover. Okay, and then here's a different kind of genre completely. One of you said that you loved Conspiracy of Silence by Ronnie Kendig, and I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, this is a great cover. This guy is very handsome. He looks tough. The title says Conspiracy of Silence, which makes you think, ooh, conspiracy. Yes, I want to read about that. Somebody is being told to keep quiet about something maybe they shouldn't. And this communicates the subgenre of this novel very well. So this is a great example, I think, of a strong cover. So those were all ones that you suggested, and I enjoyed looking through all of your responses. That was a really fun post to interact with. So thank you for letting me know what some of your favorite covers were. I always submit cover inspirations to Bethany House. And so when they asked me about a year ago to submit cover inspirations for Falling For You, I sent in pictures of people that I felt looked like Corbin and Willow, the hero and the heroine. I sent in pictures of the setting. I explained the setting. I explained the characters, explained the plot, so that the cover designers would have a lot to work with when they decided what kind of direction to take with the cover concept. And one of the things that they also asked me to do is to share some inspiration photos of photos that the idea of them may work well. And so sometimes I'll share book covers by other authors that have the right, for example, tone, or that have a font that I think might suit my type of story. And in this case, for Falling For You, I hunted around online looking at a lot of different images. And because True to You's cover had a fancy dress, in fact, here, let me grab that. So True to You's cover had this fancy dress. So the first book in the series had this fancy dress. So I knew we were going to do another fancy dress. And because the initial idea for these covers was heroine in beautiful dress, just like in so many historical novels, like the one by Jocelyn Green we just saw, I knew that we were going to do another beautiful dress for Falling For You. And so I found this photo online and sent this in as an inspiration to the cover design team. And so now take a look at the final result. Do you see some of the wonderful similarities? So cool. It's really neat when I get the sense that the design team is sort of clicking along and liking some of the ideas that I come up with, because of course they can do anything that they want with a cover. That's their prerogative. So this was really cool that I sent that photo in and that they ended up loving that and running with that general idea for a photo for the cover of Falling For You. So that's the kind of the secret inside scoop that I haven't shared anywhere until now about Falling For You. I also have some blog posts that I've recently been writing on my group blog, which is, let me just type that in here. You can find it at Inspired, let me hide that one. Okay. Inspired by Life and Fiction.com. And then if you go there and you do run a search for cover model or cover model interview, you should be able to see right away, it'll bring up the posts that match those search criteria, and you should be able to see the posts that I've recently done on my group blog about the cover. I was able to interview Morgan, which is the name of this cover model, and learn about her life. So I did a post about that. And then I was able also to share behind the scenes pictures from the cover shoot. So if you are someone who loves covers and wants more information about covers, then you can go there and you can find more details about the cover shoot and the cover model for Falling For You. All right, let me see if I have any more of your comments. Be sure to just keep them coming. I can sort of, this is neat, I can sort of scroll through. Okay, somebody read my blog post about my cover model. Yay, I'm glad. Thank you for reading that. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. Usually those are some of my favorite or most popular posts that I do all year. So thank you guys for that. Okay, you asked, did Morgan, the cover model of Falling For You, read the story she was posing for? And the answer is she emailed me to say that she was just recently sent several of copies of the novel and she was going to read it. So she didn't get an advanced copy, but she said she is going to read it. So I hope she likes it. I'm sure that they said something to her about the character that she was portraying during the cover shoot process. And so this will be maybe, I hope, a fun thing for her now to get to know that character very well through the reading of the novel. Okay. Okay, one of you said, love Nora's character and dress. Okay, so this one was Nora. This is the middle sister, Nora, and you love this dress. Yes, this dress is just so elegant, isn't it? It's so elegant. And I think that it suits her character very well because she's a brainy and bookish genealogist, and she loves to dress with kind of this retro vibe. And this dress, you know, could have been right at home in the 1950s. And so I do love that they selected this dress for that particular character. Again, they really have a great eye and an attention to detail with the covers. Let's see. Somebody said that I have beautiful covers. Yeah, I think so too. I feel like I've been very fortunate, very fortunate. My hat's off to Jennifer Parker, the cover designer at Bethany House. She's done an amazing job. One of you asked if an unpublished author wanted to be published, what should they do? What was the process like for you? I actually get this question a lot, and so I'm glad that someone asked this, because I think many readers would love to try their hand at writing, and if not, it could be that you know someone who does. So maybe your sister or your nephew or someone in your life is interested in writing. I think that a great way to begin is to sit down at the computer and start. I think one of the hardest hurdles that any aspiring writer will face is completing that first full manuscript. And it's necessary for any of us to grow in our craft to just complete one manuscript after another after another. I wrote 4 manuscripts before I published one, and 3 of those have never seen the light of day again because they were terrible. But they were worth their weight in gold because I learned so much. And one of the primary things I learned was how much I loved writing. And in addition to that, I learned a tremendous amount about the craft, and it's really important to learn about the craft. So as you're writing, try to plug into writing groups for whatever genre you're writing. So American Christian Fiction Writers is a wonderful one for those of us who are writing Christian fiction. And with any luck, they might have a local chapter near you where you could attend chapter meetings, but if not, they have many resources online. And then begin to read craft books. So you can go to your local library and you can check out books on the craft of writing, because there is this whole framework of writing that you wouldn't know about unless you study it. Because I was an avid reader before I became a writer, and so I thought that that qualified me to become a writer, but it turned out that it didn't, and that I made every rookie mistake in the book, because just because I'd read numerous novels didn't mean that I was educated about creative writing and novel writing structure. And so I recommend reading a lot of craft books. And going from there, once you've kind of begun to improve, you can start to get feedback from people who can help you further. And people, hopefully, in your local writers group will also be able to do that for you. All right, how long does my editing process take? I spend 3 months rewriting my rough draft, 1 month after I get feedback from my editors, and then 2 more weeks, 1 week each for the final 2 passes that I make. At that point, the manuscript is in like page form. Before that, it's been on computer. But I get it in a big stack of pages at that point, and I'm able to, the first time I get it, I'm able to pick up a pen and make changes, and so I do. Even after all of that editing and rewriting, before it gets to that point, I always find numerous things that I want to change. This is just my issue. I don't know that every writer is so perfectionistic like this, but I'll go through and I'll mark the whole thing up. And then I see it one last time when I'm only allowed to hunt for typos. So the answer to that is 4 months for rewriting, and then 2 more weeks for final edits. So 4.5 months, something like that. Okay, somebody asked me if I have chocolate on this end. I have chocolate in my pantry, so we're good. I have chocolate nearby. All right, somebody asked me again, how many changes between your first draft and the final book? A lot. I really don't show anyone my first drafts. I was just talking with a writer friend yesterday, and she's like, what kind of beta readers do you have? And I was like, none. I don't show anyone my first draft. I do have some wonderful writer friends that help me brainstorm while I'm writing the first draft, and that keep me encouraged and going when I'm sure that I need to give up. Danny Petrie has been praying for me, and I've been praying for her for years, since before our first novels came out. And then my great friends, Courtney Walsh and Katie Ganchert, are huge cheerleaders that see me through the rough draft writing process, but they're not beta readers. So I'm the only one who sees the rough draft. It's bad. It's really rough. Take my word for it. And then I make drastic changes between that and the final draft. So in the case of Falling for You, for example, I changed the whole history between the 2 characters. So what you read in the story was not in the rough draft. Their history was not in the rough draft. So when you read this, if you read this and you see how much their history impacts the story, you'll realize, wow, that must have been pretty different then from the original draft. And it was. Okay, let me go on and talk about more inspirations. Let's talk now about story questions. I asked you guys to talk to me a little bit earlier in the week with a post about story questions. And I find that I'm very fascinated in the books that I read with overarching story questions that make me turn the pages as I'm trying to figure them out. And in the case of Falling for You, there were a few huge best-selling books that sort of made me think, I wonder if I could tackle that same story question. So do you guys remember like the girl with the dragon tattoo and Gone Girl? Those were both just phenomenal, like off the charts bestsellers. So much so they were made into movies. Ben Affleck was in Gone Girl, the whole deal. And I found myself, whenever a book is that successful, I often will read it because I'm like, wow, what was the author doing so amazingly well that this story resonated tremendously with readers? And so in the case of those two books, I read them both. And in both cases, the story question was, what happened to the missing woman? And I thought to myself, well, this question is completely intriguing me. I'm going to have to continue reading until I figure out what happened to the missing woman. And so that was the inspiration for the story question behind Falling for You. The story question behind the story is, what happened to Josephine Blake? And she's a woman who is a relative in a roundabout way of Corbin's, and she disappeared decades ago without a trace, just vanished. And so Corbin and Willow team up with a 12-year-old girl to try to find out what happened. And it was just hilarious to pair the three of them together because it was just such an unlikely cold case team. And Willow even thinks, what am I doing? Paired with an NFL quarterback and a 12-year-old girl trying to find what happened to this missing woman. And I really enjoyed, I myself enjoyed figuring out, well, what did happen and what were the clues and how could those be uncovered? So I hope that you guys enjoy that story question. And then character inspiration. Let's talk for a minute about what inspired Willow and Corbin. So some of you may have familiarity with my Porter family series. I wrote 4 books that were set in North Texas, near where I live here in Dallas. And it was my first ever series, the Porter family series was. I had wanted to write a series for a very long time and hoped that one day I might get my opportunity. And you may know that I was once a romance writer for the general market, writing historical romances. And that part of my career just did not take off. Like, the novels did not sell well at all. And the 3rd novel that I published for the general market was supposed to be the first in a series. And then my publisher didn't offer me another contract, and my first child was born, and I just quit writing for 7 years. And when I came back to it, I knew for certain that I was meant to write Christian fiction and try my best to glorify the Lord through the stories. And so I never got to finish that series that I had started all those years ago until I was given a second chance to write the Porter family series. And so the Porter family series was a dream I'd had for a very long time. And the fact that I was able to complete it was just a huge answer to prayer for me. And the final book in that series, which I have right here, it's called Her One and Only. And this book is about the Porter family's youngest sister, Drew. And her hero was Gray, and his friend was Corbin Stewart. And when I was writing Corbin, in this story, back when I was writing him in this manuscript a few years ago, I really liked him. And as you might know, I like writing about athletes or bull riders or people that are in some way larger than life. And Corbin was very much larger than life. And so he just appealed to me. I liked his personality. And I decided back then, when I was writing Her One and Only, that I wanted to give Corbin his own story one day. And so this has now occurred. This is the fruition of that wish. So Corbin Stewart is the hero of Falling for You, and he's a retired NFL quarterback, and a whole lot of fun to write because his personality is big and confident and funny. He has a good sense of humor. Oh, and determined. He's very determined because Willow is just as determined not to fall for him as he is that she is going to fall for him. And so that was the inspiration behind Corbin. And then the inspiration behind Willow's character is that I wanted to write about sisters because I am one of 3 sisters. And actually, I am the oldest of 3 sisters, and so is Willow. And I wanted to write about a sister who was very well behaved and perfect on the outside because she's a professional model. Now, this part was not inspired by me. I mean, it was kind of funny. My sisters and I have laughed about the fact that I cast myself, the oldest sister in the series, as like this amazing beauty, which clearly is not the case here. But I wanted to write about an oldest sister who was perfect on the outside, very well behaved, very quote unquote good. Like she'd made really excellent choices. She was very responsible. Her own situation as far as her mom kind of played into that, her reasons for wanting to be perfect. And then to kind of confront, well, what could be going on underneath all of that? You know, underneath the surface of achievement and responsibility and right choices that we put out for the world to see, what could be going on underneath all of that in Willow's mind and heart. And I was very just curious to know what. And that led me to the character of Willow Bradford. And I loved her. And like one of the commenters said earlier, her spiritual storyline for me was really a powerful one. It's a story of, you know, it's the story of grace. It's the story. And so I was glad that I had a chance to tell it. Okay, I think I have covered all of my topics that I plan to cover. So I will just finish up by answering a few more questions if we have any. And then I will close this time and we'll choose winners. All right, let's see if you... This one says, I love how the cover conveys that Willow is glamorous, yet down to earth. Exactly, because she's got the bare feet. And so it shows that while she is glamorous and stylish, she is down to earth. Yes. All right. Someone asked, will you continue Charlotte's story as she gets older? What a good question. Charlotte is the 12-year-old girl in Falling for You that I mentioned. And the answer is I don't have plans to at this time. The next story will take place about almost 2 years later. And then that will conclude the series. So I think the whole series takes place within like 2.5 years, maybe even a little less than that. The whole series does. And so I don't think I'll have enough time to kind of show what happens to Charlotte when she gets older. But when readers ask me questions like this, I never say never because I just don't know where my inspiration might take me next. And in a few years, I might decide, wow, I think Charlotte's old enough now to be her own heroine. Let's go back and let's tell a story about Charlotte. She was very endearing to me. And at the time I had a child, at the time that I was writing Falling for You, I had a child right around her age. And so it was a joy for me to try to portray a middle schooler because middle schoolers don't often get a lot of page time in novels, and they should because they're great. They're really great. They get a bad rap, but they're awesome. Some of you are saying that you love American Christian fiction writers if you're an author, and I concur. It's fabulous. Okay, somebody asked, has the cover of Brit's book been shot yet? Brit's book will be shot in September. So no, the cover has not been shot yet. They're just now wanting to gather cover information from me about that book. And they will shoot the cover in September. I will probably see it in late September or early October, somewhere in that time frame. And then I'll be able to share it shortly after I see it. So look for me to debut that one in October. Which character was the most challenging to write? Which one was the easiest? In Falling for You, I found the dad's character of Joe. I found him the most challenging. I wanted to do justice to him and show that he was gruff in some ways and kind of hard to love, and in other ways very lovable. And he had some issues going on in his own life that I wanted to be true to as well. And so I found that one challenging. Which one was the easiest? I would say probably Charlotte was the easiest, the 12-year-old girl. She just sprang to life. You know, she loved Korean pop music and whales, and I just knew that girl. And so she was really easy to write. Somebody said that I mentioned Danny Petrie earlier, and they said they love her. Yeah, I love her too. She's great. Another author at our midst said their rough drafts are bad too. Yeah, it's like that thing that writers say where the rough draft is just shoveling sand into a sandbox so that you can build sandcastles later. So true. So true in my case anyway. Okay, somebody asked, speaking of covers, you said your Bradford Sisters novella wasn't published through Bethany House. How did you get the cover to match so perfectly? Okay, that is a wonderful question. And I happen to have that one right here too. Okay, so she's referring to this cover. This cover is the cover for the novella. That's the prequel. And then here you can see is True to You's cover. And so I was able to get them to match really, really well. And the way that I did that, because I did self-publish this one, this was just a project of mine that I just really wanted to do creatively, and this hadn't been part of my contract. And so I hired a cover designer for this one that was different from the cover designers for the other ones. And then I went to Bethany House and I said, would you be willing to let me know exactly what fonts you used and to share with me the little series logo? And they were so gracious, and they said, of course they would. And so they shared that stuff with me. And then I went to my cover designer and I said, I want a guy on the cover, because the story is about the main character is this guy. I want a guy on the cover, and I want this. I already had True to You's cover ready. So I said, I want this to look like this. Can you make it look very similar? And she did a phenomenal job. This was done by Jenny at Seedlings Design, and she's super talented. I love the book covers that she designs. And so she was able to find even this house that looks just like this house. So I was blown away. It was way beyond my expectations for how that would come out. Someone asked, will we get to read more about Willow and Corbin in Britt's book? And I'm so glad you love this couple. Thank you. That means a lot to me to hear that. Thank you. Yes, you will get to know more about Willow and Corbin in Britt's book. And in fact, there's some fun things coming up in Britt's book about John and Nora as well. So you'll get to catch up with John and Nora, the couple from True to You, and you'll also get to catch up with Corbin and Willow. And in fact, you'll get an update on those couples in my Christmas novella this fall with what's going on in their lives in Because of You, which is coming out this fall as part of a novella collection. Are you guys fans of those novella collections? I am. I love them. We have this one called A Christmas Heirloom. And the idea is that this heirloom was discovered back in Regency, England. So Christiane Hunter wrote a Regency set novella with this heirloom, and then it was passed down through the generations to Karen Whittemeyer's heroine, and then it was passed down through the generations to Sarah Loudon Thomas's heroine, and then my character is the granddaughter of Sarah Loudon Thomas's character. So they're all related, and this wonderful brooch has been passed down through all of those women, and it's got some potentially magical elements to it. Not magical, but it just seems to be that whenever you receive this brooch, you shortly after may find true love. And so that was great fun to do. And I was able to kind of insert some fun things that are happening in the Bradford sisters' lives in that novella that I wrote for that collection. All right, somebody said Team Porter. Yeah. I'm glad you enjoyed my Porter family. Thank you. I love, some of you are telling me which ones of my books you have loved the most and what your favorites are. And also, and actually, you know, here's somebody that said, I'm looking forward to reading the whole set. Thank you. I always am fascinated to hear which of my books are a reader's favorite, because it really shows something to me about, not so much about my writing, but about your personality. You know, if you had a favorite book, it's probably because you have a certain preference or you have a personality that kind of lines up really well with the personality of those characters. And so I'm endlessly interested to hear which ones you guys loved the most, because it just goes to show how diverse all of us readers are, because it's really a rainbow of different responses that I get to that question. Okay, somebody else, a few of you were saying that you were glad that Corbin received his own story. I am too. He got his own story. Love did not happen for him in Her One and Only, but I was able to revisit him. Okay. Do you plan? Okay, this is a really interesting question. Do you plan on having any characters from the Bradford Sisters series carry over to your next book after Britt's book? Wow, good question. I don't think so. Because I knew when Her One and Only came out that I really wanted to pull Corbin into this new series, but I don't have that same sense this time. So I don't think that I will be this time around. Somebody asked me how I manage social media and still have time to write. I am very structured with my day. So when I get back from dropping off my kids, I do almost all of my social media then. It may seem like I'm posting to Twitter throughout the day, but I'm not. I'm working on it in the morning and scheduling posts. And then I'm visiting Facebook in the morning as well. And then probably won't visit it again until evening. And so I just try to be really structured in the times in my day that I have set aside for social media, because it's so tempting to be on it all day. And I just can't let myself do that, because you're right, I wouldn't get any writing done. So I try to do it in the morning, and then I spend concentrated hours of writing, pretty much uninterrupted except for chocolate and maybe coffee. Someone asked, do you create a Pinterest board for every book you write? Do you create it before or after the novel's completion? I have an inspiration board on Pinterest. You can find me there under Becky Wade Writer. And I am constantly, as I'm writing or working on character work and plotting work before I begin writing, I am constantly adding pins to that inspiration board. So if you want to keep up in real time with what's inspiring me now, you can always find that on my Pinterest inspiration board. And then shortly before a book releases, I will move pins from the inspiration board over to that books board, and then I will publish that book's board. And plus I will add more pins to it and flesh it out a little bit more. But you can always find a board about each of my books on Pinterest if you're a Pinterest person and enjoy that. And you can also see sort of like what I envisioned John's house looking like, what I envisioned the Hartnett Chapel looking like, what I envisioned the scones and tea as looking like in the scene in Falling for You. Like, all of that stuff is there. And so it could be a fun just glimpse, behind the scenes glimpse into what I was thinking and imagining as I was writing, if you think that you might enjoy knowing that. All right. How do you create quirks for your characters? Does it come naturally, as if the character tells you what they like or don't like? Sometimes, but usually I have to find out. I have to delve and dig until I find that out. Some of the characters that I've written, like what I was just describing, Charlotte, she was more forthcoming. Like, I just knew her. But most of my characters are not as forthcoming. They're a little bit more private. And so I have to really work at it. You know, writing is a lot of work. Like, I don't think that there's any shortcut or magical solution to any of this. And characterization is certainly one of those things that I feel like just takes a lot of time and thought. And I spend a lot of time thinking about my characters. And as I'm writing their rough draft and then rewriting their story, I'm getting to know them better and better at every phase. And I'm still continuing to dig and to figure out, what are your quirks? What are your quirks, Willow? Oh, you don't like to step on sidewalk cracks. Oh, Nora, you always press your key bob twice. I just continue to think about it until I figured it out. And that's how I'm able to come up with the character quirks. I also am a good observer, and I try to observe people that I know in real life and their quirks. I will sometimes research quirks. You can actually do that. You can go online and research all type of quirks that people have, and it's actually kind of entertaining to read about them. So there's plenty of ways to build quirks, but it's one of those things that just takes time for the most part. A lot of you are posting sweet things about the novella collections. Good. I'm glad to see that you enjoy those. I'm excited. I'm excited to be a part of another one. All right. Somebody asked me which of my books is my favorite, and that's a question that I typically don't answer because I feel like I'll insult all the other novels by naming a favorite. And so I don't have a favorite, but typically I am loving most whatever book I am currently finishing up. So like I'm finishing up Britt and Xander's story now. And so that one is very much in my head and my heart right now. And what'll happen is I've written enough books to know that over the summer, Britt and Xander's story will still be at the front of my mind. That will be the one that means the most to me because that's the one I'm in. I'm in that headspace. And then when I begin to start my next book this fall, as soon as my kids go back to school, I will have a hard time falling in love with the new people because I'll still be so invested in Britt and Xander. And so it's just a slow process of falling in love for the new people that takes me about 100 pages. About a quarter of the way through the novel, I'm like, oh, I love you now. Okay. And that's just kind of the process that I go through every time. Okay. All right, let's see. I might just answer one or two more and then close our time. This one says, you could always give Grandma her own love story. She could get married in her mink coat. Oh my gosh, I love this comment. This is from somebody who's familiar with the Bradford Sisters romance series and who is a fan of Grandma. Grandma makes me laugh more than I think any other character in the Bradford Sisters series. She has been just a cantankerous joy to write. She amuses me. So I hadn't thought about giving her own love story, but it could happen. All right. How do you choose character names? I often just hear names going around life that just like ring a bell with me where I'm like, ooh, I love that name. And so I keep a list of names that I just like and add to it. And I will kind of go shopping for a name on that list when it's time to start a new story. Sometimes it does take a while to find ones that work with the personality of the characters I'm envisioning. All right. Thank you guys so much. I'm just going to write a little thank you. Thank you guys so much for showing up and chatting with me today. I really am so thankful for the chance to speak here at Avid Readers of Christian Fiction in your group. You have a fantastic group, and I appreciate the fact that you've been so supportive of Christian fiction, that you read it and that you tell your friends about it. It really is a ministry, and I think most of us that write in this genre feel that way. And we wouldn't have this ministry if it weren't for you. And so thank you from the bottom of my heart for reading and supporting authors and supporting our ministry. This community is a very encouraging community, and it's a wonderful thing to be a part of it. So thank you guys. I hope you have a great rest of your Saturday, and happy royal wedding day to you. Bye. I'll be naming winners right after this. So I'm going to go and choose 5 winners just after this. So stay tuned. I'll tag you if you're a winner. Thanks for coming.